Snuggle Stories presents Bibi, a yoga story about gratitude. Written by Agnieszka Migew and illustrated by Ashleigh Heyns. Once there was a very sweet little bee named Bibi, and, like most bees, she was very hardworking. Now, being hardworking is a very good thing to be, but the trouble was, Bibi worked so hard, she often forgot to say thank you to others. Do a bee pose. One day, she was flying over a flower-filled meadow when she spotted a sparkly house half hidden under the poppies. Thinking it was the sweetest house she'd ever seen, she flew down and landed by the front. She knocked rat-tat-tat. A second later, her knocking was answered by a, "Who's there?" "My name is Bibi," the bee shouted through the door, although it wasn't a very loud shout as she was just a tiny bee. "Can you let me in?" Do house pose. There was a big clunk as the door was unlocked. It opened, and there, standing in the doorway, was a tiny fairy. Do open door pose. "I like having visitors," the fairy told the bee, inviting her in. Bibi smiled and flew into the house. She gasped. The house was just as pretty on the inside as it was on the outside. There were so many different colors on the walls. Reds, yellows, even bright purple, which happened to be Bibi's favorite color. And everything seemed to sparkle. The little bee decided there and then that she wanted a house just like this. So she asked the fairy, "How did you make such a wonderful house?" Do happy pose. "I'm a thank you fairy," the fairy answered with a flutter of her wings. "Every time a child says thank you, they make a little bit of magic dust. We collect the dust and use it to make a house." Flutter wings. "Wow," gasped the bee. "I'd love to have a house just like this." Rub hands together. "I can help you if you want," the fairy smiled back. "I can grant you 3 wishes." Bibi rubbed her wings together. How exciting, she thought. Do bicycle pose. "Okay, for my first wish, I'd like to have a house just like this. For my second wish, I'd like to have a shiny red bicycle. And for my third wish, I'd like a new slide I can have lots of fun with." The little fairy frowned. "There is just a tiny problem. I cannot grant you anything if you don't say please and thank you." Do slide pose. "Oh," buzzed Bibi. Then a little awkwardly she added a please and a thank you. "Is that better?" the bee asked. Do flying pose. "Much better," the fairy answered. "Tomorrow, when you wake up, your house will be just as sparkly as this house." "Excellent! Goodbye, then." And off Bibi flew. Early the next morning, when Bibi opened her eyes, she discovered her house was indeed just as sparkly as the fairy had promised. Stretch and yawn. And when she went out into the garden, she discovered a shiny red bicycle under a daffodil. With a wild cry, she jumped on it and cycled all the way to the bottom of the hill. There she discovered her third wish, the slide. There were lots of little bees playing on it and having lots and lots of fun. Do slide pose. Make a call pose. Over the next few days, Bibi played on her bicycle all the time. But then it got a puncture, so she had to call the bee fixer to fix it for her, which he very kindly did. But Bibi forgot to say thank you. And the slide was so popular with all the bees, it soon had a tiny hole in it, right in the middle. So Bibi called the bee fixer for a second time. "I'm so sorry," she told him, "but my slide is broken." "No problem." The bee fixer was a very kindly sort, and within a few hours, he'd fill the hole with leaves and the slide was working perfectly. But Bibi forgot to say thank you for a second time. The next day, when Bibi woke up, her bike had vanished and the hole in the slide was no longer a tiny hole, but a huge hole. It was impossible to fix. The bee was so very angry, she turned red. Do angry tiger pose. Then, just as she felt things couldn't get any worse, she saw her house had lost its sparkle. "Oh no," she sobbed. Do sad sandwich pose. She decided to visit the fairy and tell her what had happened. When she got there, she knocked on the door. A second later, the fairy opened it. "My slide's broken," the bee howled. "My bicycle has vanished and my house has lost its sparkle." The fairy nodded. "When the bee fixer fixed the puncture in your bicycle tire, did you thank him?" Bibi thought for a second. No, I don't think so, but I was very busy making a honey sandwich." Do fairy pose. "And when your slide had a hole in it and the bee fixer fixed it, did you thank him then?" "No," admitted the bee. "I was too busy arranging flowers." It's very important to be thankful for the things we get and to people who help us, the fairy told her. But you weren't. That's why your house lost its sparkle. The bicycle vanished and the slide is now too badly broken to be fixed. Although Bibi was very sad, she understood she had been wrong not to be thankful for what she'd been given. So, from that day on, she changed and began saying thank you every day. Soon, she discovered the world was a much nicer place than it was before. Now, all the bees wanted to play with her. They even got her a shiny new bicycle for her birthday. Remember, thank you is a very powerful word. Say it every day as often as you can. Not only will it help to bring you the things we wish for, it will bring the unexpected too. What are you grateful for today?
Like this video, give a thumbs up and subscribe.